Hello everyone, we hope you're all doing well. Welcome to yet another video presented to you by Insight's IAS team as part of your InstaEthics GS4 initiative. Now in this video, we will be keeping things very light. We won't be drawing on things like we did in the last video where we discussed in quite a detail. We have picked a very simple topic, and this topic, the suggestion for that was given to us by one of our students who used to watch our videos. This student had asked us to explain the difference between values, morality and ethics. Now these three terms, so far I've used it in a very interchangeable manner. I've used it in a very synonymous manner. But there are certain minute and important differences. And these three terms, even though people have read about ethics, if you ask them what is the difference between these three terms, they will not be able to give you a very accurate answer in an adequate manner. Why is this? Because there are many confusions involved in it. One such confusion I want to talk beforehand itself so that you have some clarity when you are listening to me. Ethics, I told you, the root word for ethics, it basically, that is ethos or ethic, it means what? Character. So when I talk about character, what exactly it is the character. We usually perceive character to be associated with an individual, right? Remember this. Now when we talk about morality, the root word for morality is from this Latin, all right? And this word in Latin means customs. So when I talk about customs, usually what our mind says, customs is something that is associated with a larger group, with a society, with a group mentality. Is it not? But the definitions that you study in your books, the definitions that you come across in the internet are vice versa. What is ethics? That was our first video when we started this journey. And we spoke about how ethics is followed at a societal level. It is nothing but a systematized sets of rules and regulations for the collective welfare, stability and all those kind of things. Sometimes we also say that ethics is nothing but a scientific study of morality. Alright? So please remember, yes, the root word in these two cases, they mean the opposite. But the actual definition, the actual meaning is not related to the root word. This is the major confusion that many students have when they are reading about these three terms. Alright? Now, what is the standard approach in explaining these three terms, values, ethics and morals? Many people tend to go for this table approach. It's a very good approach, nothing against it. And they try to compare and contrast these values, morals and ethics. What I thought was, let me make your life a bit more simpler by taking an example and then giving you the meaning behind it so that it sticks in your mind, so that there is minimal amount of confusion and hopefully no confusion at all. Right? Let me just give you this story and then I'll go to that table approach. What is the story about? This story is related to one of the incidents that happened in the life of Mahatma Gandhi ji. This incident is referred to as the Great Trial of Mahatma Gandhi. Let me just read out a few important things about this. Gandhiji's trial after non-cooperation movement. This refers to the trial that happened after non-cooperation movement. You know when non-cooperation movement happened in the 1920s, 21 and 22. Gandhiji, all right, he was at the helm of carrying out this non-cooperation movement, and in this movement we had so many participation, cutting across religious lines, cutting across regional lines, cutting across occupational lines as well. We saw independence not far away from us, but unfortunately the non-cooperation movement was called off by Gandhiji in a very haphazard manner, as some critics of Gandhiji put it across. Why did Gandhiji do what he did? Why did he suddenly, suspend the movement? You know the answer. The answer was nothing but Chauri Chaura incident, where a group of protesters, they burned down a police station. They burnt down a police station with police personnel still inside it. Gandhiji was very sad with it. He did not want to win independence through such violent means. So he gave up that movement. What did Britishers do? How did they react to this? They filed a case of sedition against Gandhiji and they produced Gandhiji in front of the court. Sedition. Sedition is an issue which has been in news in the last few years. People who are going to write mains, people who will write mains, okay, you need to have proper understanding of sedition, the legal provisions related to it, what are the pros and cons, what are the various Supreme Court judgments associated with it. I won't go into the detail of it because that is not the demand of this discussion. So Britishers filed a case against Gandhiji on this issue. Gandhiji went to court. What transpired in that court is an ideal way for me to explain the meaning of these three terms. Alright, what are some of the important statements made during this trial? Let me just read it out for you. Okay, Gandhiji told the judge that he was not asking for mercy. Remember this, he was not asking for mercy. He said, Gandhiji said, which according to law is a deliberate crime, is what appears to him to be the highest duty. Remember, highest duty of a citizen. What was the crime that Gandhiji committed as per the Britishers in India? He committed the crime of sedition. And what is sedition? Sedition is nothing but bringing or attempting to excite disaffection towards the British government established by law in British India. The definition remains much or less the same. British India is now replaced by Union of India. Anyways, coming back. What was the second thing that Gandhiji spoke about or the other stakeholders spoke about? On completion of Gandhi's statement, the judge cited the court trial of Lokmanya Tilak, one more celebrated national freedom fighters of our country. Swaraj is my birthright. You all know that famous phrase was given by Lokmanya Tilak. And based on the same ruling, the judge announced 6 years of imprisonment to Gandhi and added that nobody would be happier than me the day the government releases you from the prison. Remember, this happiness of his own judgment being overruled or overturned by the government of the day was given by the judge himself. This incident also I want you to remember. Now, what are the aspects related to values here? What are the aspects related to morality here? What are the aspects related to ethics here? In this example, in this scenario, that is what we will look into. In the first statement, I told you to remember, Gandhiji was not asking for mercy. Right? What is the thing that is highlighted there? When Gandhiji did not ask for mercy, he showcased the value of courage. He was courageous. He was not afraid of facing the punishment, even though what he said during the non-cooperation movement against the Britishers India was not unethical or immoral. Alright? It was basically a speech that spoke about the exploitations of the British against the Indians. That was the statement, that was what the speech that Gandhiji called. He called all the people of the India to fight against, to resist this exploitation. Gandhiji considered this as his highest duty. What value is highlighted in this? In this, you see the value of responsibility, is it not? Alright? Two values, courageousness, responsibility, and honesty as well. Is it not? Gandhiji was not afraid to dilute on his honesty, looking at what punishment might be given. Gandhiji was honest to the point, even though it meant he would get punishment for it. Courageousness, responsibility, honesty, all these three things are values. Gandhiji did not take to violence. Gandhiji was non-violent. Gandhiji called off the non-cooperation movement, which could have been successful, because he did not want that movement to be successful because of violence. Non-violence was also one of the core values of Gandhiji. So basically, when I say values, these are the basic building blocks in an individual. These are the values that provide a person's character with a quality of their own. Right? Honesty is a core quality of Gandhiji's personality. Don't you agree with me? Non-violence is a core value of Gandhiji's personality. All of you know about it. This is what value means. Values are the basic building blocks on which morality and ethics stand. Now, over the years, when an individual develops a set of values, when an individual develops a set of values for himself, then those set of values that he or she holds very dear to themselves, those values that dictates the behavior of a person, these values are called as morality. Okay? Morality as an individual preference. Please remember that as well. And where is this morality showcased here? This morality is showcased by the judge. The judge was bound by the rules and regulations which was there at that point in time in terms of his legal profession. He was bound by it. He knew the charges that the British India had framed against Gandhiji was superficial in nature. He knew what message Gandhi spoke about was true, was right, was good. But nevertheless, he was bound, he was shackled by the legal profession, and still he took a decision as per the legal profession, but he still gave an opinion which showcased his moral character. And what was his moral character? He highlighted through his statement that what British India did with Gandhiji was indeed wrong. With this statement, nobody would be happier than me that the government releases you. Nobody would be happier than me the day the government releases you from the prison. This showcases the morality of the judge. Morality is a set of values that an individual develops over the course of one's life. And these set of values, they hold very dear to them. These set of values dictate their thinking process, dictate their attitude, dictate their behaviors as well. Alright? So this is values and morality. So what is ethics? That was our first video, is it not? It is nothing but a systematized, well-founded principle that is accepted as right from a societal perspective. How is this accepted as right at a societal perspective? Right? It has to be on the basis of morality of individuals, is it not? So that is why ethics is also described as a scientific study of morality. Okay? The moral preferences of all the individuals, they play a part in deciding the ethics. Not just that. Ethics, we have discussed, is decided by legal and professional guidelines as well. In this scenario, the judge, even though he believed that Mahatma Gandhiji was in no wrong, he was still supposed to apply the legal ethics by which he was bound. This is what that exactly happened. Right? So in this case study, you have values, you have morality, as well as you have ethics in picture. How is morality reflected in the judge as well? The statement that he gave. he retained his objectivity even though he was bound by that legal ethics. That objectivity is a value in the judge. All right. Please remember this. Values are the building blocks on which stands morality. Morality in turn helps to understand ethics as such. This is one of the simplest way of understanding values, morality and ethics. Right? Let me just give you this one very simple picture so that it stays in your mind and you can reproduce that to understand these terms if it is required. Right? Here you see a bunch of stones arranged one on top of the other. The lowest stone is nothing but values. Right? Values are the basic building blocks which decide ethical and moral foundation of its actors. Values influence morality, values influence ethics as well. Please remember that. Now, let us come back to the more conventional approach and look and compare all these three terms. We'll start with the definition of all these three important terms. What is values? Values are the set of principles that are inherent in an individual and motivates him or her to work better. Values are basic building blocks which gives a person their character, which gives a direction for a person to think, to act with certain predispositions. Those are values. Values can be both positive as well as negative. I won't get into the detail of values because we will be discussing human values in much more detailed manner in the next few videos. What is the definition of morality? Morals are the learned values of an individual under the influence of society and surroundings. From the day a person is born, he or she will hold certain values very dear to them. These values will decide the individual's preference, thinking process and behavior and attitude and all such kind of things. These are what morals are. Morals are a set of values. Apart from that, what are we left with? Ethics. Ethics are a set of guiding values. Look at the difference. Learned values, guided values. Ethics are a set of guided values that are accepted as right, not from an individual perspective, but rather from a societal perspective. All right? People tend to get confused between ethics and morals because of the meaning of their root word. Please don't go based on that. Right? Coming back, values are personal in nature. Yes, we've spoken about that. Morals are also often personal in nature. You know about that. Individual preferences, learned values associated with an individual. All are trying to tell you that it is more personal in nature. The next thing, ethics are often professional and legal guidelines. If you are from a medical profession, no matter what your opinion is, if you come across a person who has committed a heinous crime, even though you consider such crimes to be immoral, you still have to treat him. That is because it is your medical ethics. Now, when you talk about legal ethics, you have prosecution, you have defense lawyers. Defense lawyers will have their own set of moral beliefs. But despite these moral beliefs, they have to defend certain accused of heinous crimes as well, because that is part of their legal ethics. Everyone who is accused deserves to be provided with good amount of lawyer, all right, or legal help in our setup, in our law setup, legal ethics, all right. Even though a lawyer, defense attorney knows that his client has committed a heinous crime, he is still bound by his legal ethics to defend him to the best of his ability. Whether his personal view in terms of immorality over there, it does not play a part. It is legal ethics. Coming back, values tend to remain the same for a longer period in an individual's life. Now, certain values, all right, in terms of religion, in terms of our non-religious secular aspects that we talk about, they formed at a very, very young stage. It is very difficult to overcome them. It is very difficult to change them, but change is possible. Gandhiji's emphasis on honesty was something which was built into Gandhiji from a very young days, since his childhood. All right? Values. I can give you one more example in terms of how we grew up. When we were growing up, our understanding or our perception of homosexuality was quite regressive in nature. It was quite negative in nature. But now, this is changing. The change is not very drastic, but still it is positive in nature. One of the values that was taught to us when we were growing up, it is that you need to look after the welfare of the family. Collective welfare of the family was given a much higher priority when compared to individualism. But in the present scenario, when you are growing if you look at the present generation, individualism is increasing. You see nuclear families coming up. Marriage was considered as a very sacred notion. But when you look at in the present scenario, you also have other alternative practices such as live-in relationships. You have come across those incidents where a person married themselves as well. All right? So all these things, values do change. These are values which are formed at a very young time, but nevertheless, they are open to change. But the change takes a lot of time. What about morality? Morals are largely affected by the surroundings and prone to change once the surroundings of an individual change. When you're introduced to modern means of education, you get to know that what your perception is in terms of caste or in terms of any other social stratification is not that high, is not that good. And then you tend to change it, is it not? Apart from that, certain individuals might have a preference for leading a very lavish life. But once they are introduced into a scenario where they see poverty, where they see inequality, their preferences might change. From leading a very lavish life, they might adopt a very minimalistic life as well. Right? Morality also is subjected to change. And this change could be brought about by the surroundings, by other factors in the society. What about ethics? Ethics too can vary across time and place depending on various factors. We've already spoken about it. At one point in time, slavery, caste system was considered as ethical in nature, was considered as a good behavior. But in the present times, we no longer believe in such kind of things. Right? All these three are subjected to change, but the relative pace of this change, that is where the difference lies. And that too, this difference is very minute and very easily noticeable in values, more than ethics or morality. Coming to the other difference, values differ from person to person. This is true. This is self-explanatory. If you just look at your own family, your father might have certain very unique qualities, set of qualities. Your mother might have unique set of qualities. You will have your own unique set of qualities. You might be very courageous. Your father might be very patient in nature. Your mother might be very good thinker in terms of taking into both objective and subjective analysis. There's so many things. In your mother, you might find the value of compassion in a much higher degree. Values differ from one person to the other person. If you look at our national freedom struggle also, there was differences in terms of values of various leaders, be it Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Subhash Chandra Bose, Jawaharlal Nehru, so many. Right? These are the values that give that unique character to our leaders, to human beings as well. Coming back, what about morality? It may be different from culture to culture. All right? Now, when you are growing up, there are certain preferences that you hold. There are certain notions that you hold. When I was growing up, or my generation was growing up, we thought homosexuality to be immoral. But we don't believe, if not all, There's certain significant section who do not believe that is immoral, that homosexuality is immoral in any means as of now. Because we have got modern means of education, we have got the legal judgments given by the highest court of the land. So there is that acceptance. But if a person does not have this modern means of education or does not have awareness of these things, still they might consider it to be immoral. Many people in many cultures, all right, live-in relationship is considered as immoral. In many cultures, abortion is considered as immoral. Suicides are considered to be immoral, right? Morality, these set of learned values from birth till death, all right, they might differ based on culture to culture. The other difference that you have is ethics is an absolute standard of behavior. You need to do these things. If you are in legal profession, you have to follow this. If you are an administrator in India, you have been given a code of ethics. These are the standard behaviors that are expected from you. An absolute standard. All right? Please remember this. The last difference between all these three terms is values can be changed, but it is relatively harder for the change to happen. I've explained this, okay, when I was discussing about values tend to remain the same for a longer period in an individual's life. Morality may change as acceptable social behavior in the culture changes, right? This is something that we have already discussed, but nevertheless, if I have to give an example, when you're living in an Indian society, the emphasis on community being or community welfare of the family is quite important. But when you go to American society, what you considered as moral, all right, in Indian society in terms of living for the family, you might consider it to be immoral. You will give emphasis to individualism. As and when there is a change in the culture, your morality might also differ. Beef eating is considered as immoral by many people who are belonging to Hinduism. But if you go to American society, beef eating is accepted. It is not considered as immoral. It is accepted as a moral behavior on part of the individual, right? So it is like that. Moving on, the next thing is standard is universal and immutable, not subject to change. Ethics, there are certain well-founded principles that remain the same across time and place. Your Universal Declaration of Human Rights is an example of that. A human being, by his virtue of birth, should be associated with certain rights, certain universal rights, absolute standards that can be implemented across time and place. All right? Let us try to give more examples and understand the similarities or the conceptual understanding of ethics, morals and values. This is something that I've taken from the last few weeks' current affairs. This happened in the United States of America. What happened? The Supreme Court of USA, in a 5-4 decision on Friday, last few weeks ago, overturned Roe vs. Wade, the landmark ruling that established the constitutional right to abortion in the United States in 1973. The Supreme Court of USA had recognized that a woman had a right over her body to decide in which way her pregnancy needs to take a turn. Whether she wants to abort, that was her decision. Whether she wants to abort, that was her decision. But this decision was recently revoked by the Supreme Court. What are the ways to look into ethics, morals and values here? The constitutional right for abortion, that was the ethical part of it. Even though it was accepted as a constitutional right, many people still considered abortion to be immoral. All right? This is what the morality part in this case study is about. What is the value part? The value part is justice. Some people believe that justice was denied in this particular case when the overturning happened because women no longer have the right over their body. Many states have already started the process of implementing laws to severely limit the use age of abortion. the justice for women is violated. Many people also say that justice is being upheld, the value of justice is being upheld because even the rights of the unborn fetus will now have to be respected. You might belong to the category of group of people who say that abortion is a right that should be given to women. You might belong to the category of people who might say that women should not be given that right. Right to abortion is against the rights of unborn fetus. It's up to you. I won't get into the controversy of that. But whatever your opinion is on this abortion as such, if you can share it with us, it will be a very exciting debate to witness in the comment section. Moving on. All right. What other examples can we use for this understanding of ethics, morals and values? You can take up the Russia-Ukraine issue, the stance that India has taken. Many people say that India's stance is immoral. All right. I won't get into the deep of that, but the depth of that, but nevertheless, if you want, think on this and try to identify the ethics, morals and values in that. You can talk about the banning of wheat, the export of wheat, all right, that we came up with not so long ago. Many countries criticize India for that particular aspect as well. Identify the ethics, morals and values in these issues as well. Whatever ethics you read, whatever aspects related to GS4 you read, you should learn how to apply them on a much more larger perspective. That is very important. All right. Moving on. Last video I had given you one practice question. The question is, human beings should always be treated as ends in themselves and never as merely means. Explain the meaning and significance of the statement, giving its implication in the modern techno-economic society. This question is nothing but comparing and contrasting of teleological and deontological. In deontological, it is the ways and the means that you adopt which are important. The consequence in Kant is not that important. You can't adopt an illegal approach to create good in the society. Kant will never allow that to happen. But when we talk about teleological approach, the utilitarianism, here the importance is given to the end result, creating the greatest happiness of the greatest number. And if you adopt certain ways and means which might not be ethical in nature, it might be accepted considering the end result. But as a human being, as an administrator in India, what is important? Here, means is as important as the end as well, particularly for an administrator in India. I'll come to that point. Let me just give you one example from your UPSC syllabus so that it sticks in your mind. Achieving independence was important. This was our end result. This was our end objective. Now, we could have achieved this independence in so many ways. We could have adopted the violent approach, but we never went for that. We emphasized on that non-violence. When we emphasized on that non-violence, it took us a bit more time. But nevertheless, non-violence became part and parcel of our life. Tolerance became part and parcel of our life. Respect towards rule of law became part and parcel of our life. This is important. Both ways and ends, they are very important. You can't adopt ways which are illegal, which are unethical or immoral in nature. Human beings should always be treated as ends in themselves and never as merely means. Explain the meaning. All right. I told you the meaning is nothing but trying to talk about deontological and teleological. What is the significance of this statement giving its implication in the modern techno-economic society? Let me take some examples so that you will understand better. IP rights. This is related to present economic issue. In intellectual property rights, many companies view this IP rights as an means to enrich their wealth, to amass even more wealth. They look at the diseases, they look at the human beings suffering from those diseases as a means to get wealth. This is wrong, is it not? Whatever work they're doing, whatever research that they're doing is for the collective welfare of human beings irrespective, should be the collective welfare of human being, irrespective of the economic status of that particular individual in the society. Human beings are ends in themselves. They are not ways to enrich more wealth. Right? This is what it means. You have to take the issues, techno-economic issues in the present scenario, and you have to give the significance of it. If you consider the human beings as ends in themselves, in the case of intellectual property rights, there will be much more affordable and accessible healthcare services, not just in the country, in the world. All of you have read about how Indian pharmaceutical industries played an important part in terms of making crucial medicines available to many people in the world at an accessible and affordable price. Right? That is one thing that you can talk about, economic issue. You can talk about privacy issue. Now, when we are following this concept of human beings as an end in themselves and not as a means, what is achieved? What is the positive implication of that? We are achieving universal health access to everyone. Okay, so you have to write the significance and the implication together. Other thing, privacy issue. Now, multinational tech companies are growing. This, all right, century is going to be a century of data. Now, when you are having access to so much of data, it is very easy to manipulate the mindset of a human being. It is very easy to manipulate the institutions that are existent in the society. It might be democracy, it might be family, it might be politics, so many other things. Now, here also, when you look at multinational tech companies, they look at human beings as a means to generate more data, as a means to use that data and generate more revenue for themselves, more advertisement for themselves. That should not be the case, right? They should have respect for a human being's privacy. They need to look at a human being and they should consider it as an end in itself, nothing more than that. But that is not happening. When that does not happen, what is the implication of that? Is it positive or negative? Obviously, it is negative. Privacy is violated. All of you know what happened in the issue of Cambridge Analytica. Well, the democracy of the United States of America was allegedly violated by the Russian establishment. Right? Take such present techno-economic issues and talk about it. It could be your vaccine inequities that is happening in the present scenario where the developed countries are holding into it. You can talk about privatization, which is an economic issue as well. You can talk about the technological resources that developing countries need to overcome the challenges associated with climate change. If we do not get access to technological and financial resources, our fight towards ensuring that Earth remains a sustainable planet for our future generation will not be met. Is that positive or negative implication? Absolutely negative, right? So you have to take these issues and then you have to discuss it. Please, again, I'm repeating, in your ethics answers, don't be just argumentative. Take arguments. Along with that, you please integrate current affairs, whatever UPSC syllabus is there, into your answers as well. Conclusion, briefly suggest how we can emphasize on ends rather than means itself. I'm just going to put it in a different manner. Here, human beings should be considered as ends in themselves and they should not be considered as means to achieve something bigger. Why is it that we are looking at human beings as a means? We are becoming selfish, we are becoming greedy. The notion of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is just words. We are not practicing, we're just preaching it but not practicing it. How can we overcome this? We should teach our kids, we should teach our children, we should teach our administrators at a very young level to develop this attitude, this habit of looking at people from a end perspective rather than a means. So this is how your basic framework should be. Now, just trying to repeat what the conclusion should be. Briefly suggest how we can emphasize on ends rather than means. Here, looking at the statement, human beings should always be treated as ends in themselves and never as merely means. What is happening in the present scenario? We are emphasizing just human beings as a means framework. That should not be there. Keep that in mind and then you write an optimistic and a solution-based conclusion. All right. That is about it. Moving on, what is the practice question for today? This is also a previous year question, just like all the other videos where we have spoken about. Question is, what do you understand by values and ethics? In what way is it important to be ethical along with being professionally competent? What they are saying, they're asking you to define values and ethics. We have discussed that in today's video. Along with that, what they're asking is, yes, you need to be ethical. Along with being ethical, you also need to be professionally competent. So when I say professionally competent, if you have the knowledge of what is good and right, but you don't have the knowledge of how to do that, how to implement, you don't have that professional competency, then whatever ethical component that you have in your life is absolutely useless, right? So both ethics as well as professional competency should grow together. That is the importance of it. Okay, you just have to give examples in terms of how it is important for for a person to be ethical as well as professionally competent in various spheres of life, be it in public affairs, be it in private affairs as well. All right, so this is about today's video. I hope it was useful. If you have any doubts, please do get back to us. I hope now you have a basic understanding or the conceptual clarity in terms of what are values, morals, and ethics, and what is the similarity or the difference between all of them. Thank you for your time.